So I'm Kyle, and this is my international informative speech on why American agriculture is widespread. So before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about why I'm qualified to talk about this. I'm from Clark County, Wisconsin, which is small town USA. We have lots of dairy farms and lots of crop farms, and I'm from a bit of a farm, so I have a working knowledge of American agriculture. Back when America was first starting out, the average farm was just barely big enough to feed a family, and now one farmer can feed over 100 people. And as America's influence on the world has increased, so has American agriculture's influence. So American agriculture has a widespread impact on the world, which is why people should know about it, because a lot of your food comes directly from or as a result of American agriculture. So I have three main reasons in support of this. American agriculture provides more food and fiber than we need. American agriculture is constantly improving yields and decreasing harm to the environment. And finally, American agriculture supports jobs all around the world. So back to the first statement. According to agday.org, U.S. farmers produce 46% of the world's soy, 41% of the world's corn, 20.5% of the world's cotton, and 13% of the world's wheat. And from the same source, 1/3 of all U.S. crops are exported. And according to commerce.gov, in 2012, U.S. agricultural exports exceeded $145.4 billion, setting a record, and most of this was sold directly to China. My second statement, that American agriculture is constantly improving yields and attempting to decrease harm to the environment, is backed up by the fact that from farmbureau.org, that today's farmers produce 262% more food with less inputs than they did back in 1950. And from the same source again, that in the 1960s, one farmer could supply enough food for 25.8 people, and now one farmer can supply enough food for 144 people. From agday.org, 41% of the U.S. is farmland, and back in 1900, the average farm was 147 acres, while the average farm now is 441 acres. A newer technique called precision farming increases yields and reduces waste by using maps, GPS, and computers to match the crop and the seed with the fertilizer and the soil protection to the conditions where it's going to be planted, which comes from agday.org. And my final statement, that American agriculture supports jobs all around the world, is supported by the fact that over 21 million American workers produce, process, and sell food and fiber. And that fact comes from farmbureau.org. And then 40% of the global workforce, or 1.3 billion people in the world, are involved or directly related to agriculture, making it the largest part of the economy in most countries. And that fact comes from momagri.org. So a bigger reason why American agriculture has an impact on other countries is because it takes a lot of people to ship product from America to another country, and you have to have people there to inspect it, make sure it's quality and it survived the trip. And then you have to have someone to process the food into whatever the culture there would use it for, and finally to have someone to sell the product. And then a lot of American products things Americans use to produce our agricultural products come from are manufactured in other countries, like your tractor parts, your tires, and things like that. So in conclusion, my main three statements again are that American agriculture provides more food and fiber than we need. American agriculture is constantly improving yields and decreasing harm to the environment. And finally, that American agriculture supports jobs all around the world. So this is my note card. This is my audience. That's my speech.